What you're about to hear is a story about superheroes. Not about your average run-of-the-mill, super physically strong Superman, or about some guy with laser eyes or super speed. Once upon a time, there was a woman called Envirowoman. And as you can possibly tell from the name, she had a connection with nature and the elements. But she also had a special way with words, sound. This developed first into language and then poetry. This is the Envirowoman's saga. A long time ago, when I was a kid, I wanted superpowers, but none of those on TV seemed to fit. Yet as I grew up, a light bulb lit. And I learned that strength is not only physical, it can also take form of intelligence, talent, kindness, or wit. I learned that my superhero powers come with my passion for equality. For all living creatures that will ever live, breathe, exist, or be, that was my prophecy, and therefore this is my plea. I, Envirowoman, am here to make sure everyone is treated equally. No matter species, social class, gender, race, or sexuality, together equally, there is more power in him, her, them, you, and me than there is in those who oppress demographically. Not even close to sarcastically, let me mention oppressors often possess authority. They engage in oppression mainly for profit and a feeling of superiority. Methodically. Mistaken villains like Darth Vader, Magneto, and the Joker once were also treated horribly. So let's stop the mistake of using horrifying policies. I would not beat up the assumed villains so easily before understanding the system that made them or who they originally wanted to be. I seem to be missing the second page of the introduction. I guess you'll have to be kept in suspense until I locate it. Now, some context is in order. How does someone become Envirowoman? How does a superhero come to be? See, the beautiful thing about Envirowoman is that there isn't just one, but thousands of her around the earth. And one of these was a girl who grew up in Scandinavia in the West with a single mom. She went to school, did karate, kicked some guy in the face who tried to bully her. She fell in love, fell out of it, and so on. But what was so special about this girl for our story was that she always dreamt of being a superhero. Not because of the supernatural powers. She could, as I mentioned, already kick people in the face. But because she always wanted to support those less privileged than herself. Whatever creature that might be. One day, the year before starting university, she saw a video online. Chicken thrown into drawers, hanged up, treated like any other material thing that you would make in a factory. The only difference was that they were still alive. This was the first time that the girl was faced with how the animal agriculture industry can work. But more importantly, that things are not always as they seem. She learned of this term called greenwashing. An example of this is the happy cow grazing on the milk box, or the flourishing chicken on the eggs. So she decided it was time to make a switch. But not just for the animals, for the environment. When the girl moved away to university, a documentary with the famous Leonardo DiCaprio had come out. It was called Before the Flood, and explored how devastating climate change really is, and how its consequences are affecting nature, animals, and people all around the world. After watching this film, the girl realized what she had to do. She had to fight like a superhero would. And in this moment, Envirowoman was born in her. And from then on, she would do whatever she could to help protect the planet. For her, that was with sound, words, creativity, hope, and inspiration. And by doing every little bit that she could. Like picking up leftover bits of litter. This must be from Envirowoman. She must have enviro-beamed it here. But why? Now, if you've ever read or watched any of the Marvel comics, you'll know that there are several Spider-Man in different multiverses. And as I mentioned, there are also several Envirowoman. And this book right here gathers all of their words and stories, the sound of the superheroes, if you would. And I have a feeling that this letter from one of the Envirowoman fits perfectly right here. The world is ending. And no, I don't mean in a metaphorical way or that a meteor is on the way to strike us out. No aliens are invading Earth. No plague is making people eat brains. Oh wait, maybe there is. Maybe that plague is something we can't see eating our brains, something we must see. Maybe we're eating our own brains, something starting with a C. Capitalism, consumerism, conservatism, comfortability. The world is ending because we refuse to see the reality of the seas. There's a sea, an ocean, the sea. I admire the sea. How a wave can pave the road for marine life, for our life, for the energy of our life, yet as a thank you, we throw our trash at it. Plastic sea. Now the sea is consequently rising to fight back. While our brains are eaten by laziness, stubbornness, and unwillingness, there's one sea we have to see. Change. Change to our behavior, climate change, our selfishness, our self-obsessiveness, our unwillingness to change because of convenience and because of capital. See, I like trees. The grandness of their branches, how they branch out, reaching far, their network, their kindness, they literally soak up our flaws, carbon dioxide, and other sea. Did you know that trees share their nutrients with other trees that are struggling? If only we could try to see that, learn from that, from nature, and share our nutrients, our wealth with those struggling instead of buying, consuming. More is not enough for us. But it is for trees. There is no sea in tree, but there is in cut, and we're cutting them down to make room for our comfortability, our capitalism, our consumption. If only the plague was consumption. There's a cure for that. See, let's cure stupidity. People dying is environmentally friendly, is it? Will that make us see that we're not in control anymore? Control. That's a big C. We can even control the weather now. Did you hear about those artificial rain clouds they use in Dubai to make it rain so people will go into the shopping centers? Cloud seed. If only we could do that where there's drought, where people are suffering, where animals are suffering, that would literally make us control the climate. Animals. They developed the ability to see for survival. So did we originally, yet we're acting like we're blind, leaving behind those we cannot see. While Baloo the bear understands the beauty in bare necessities, we do not. Hakuna Matata. Animal worries were limited before we came along. Extinction. There's a sea in that. Extinct is what they will be, what the trees will be, what the sea will be, what we will be. If we do not change and try to save all beings, we will consequently compromise our children's future. Consequences. Capital C. Climate change is a consequence of cutting down trees, of consumerism, of capitalism, of our comfortability, of our conservatism, and our complete unwillingness to change to the extent we need to not compromise our children's future. Compromise. That's not so hard. Compromise, we do it all the time when money is involved. Do I buy a car or computer? Computer or car? Both? Standard or next day delivery, how about we compromise in the places where it really matters? Cutting down on stuff, on consumption. To save our children, there is a sea in children. They march for their future, knowing every mile will be worth their while, and the right path is not always the easiest one. There's a sea in March. Let's march with them and let them teach us how to see. Another environmental superhero to be was 8-year-old Nia from Kenya. She had what we today call eco-anxiety. And with eco-anxiety comes a lot of guilt. She felt like Nothing she did was enough. People and animals were suffering. What could she do? Her and her tribe already consumed so little, yet they were blamed by the world for being too many. So, should she not have children when she grew up? As Nia started in the 3rd grade, she finally found a way to express her emotions through words. She had found her superpower, her voice. Emergency, emergency. This is an emergency. Someone dial 911 or Envirowoman. It's too hot. It's too hot. She's thirsty, she needs water, she is drowning. It's an emergency. This is an emergency. An environment and climate change emergency. It doesn't matter which currency you use, you can't buy a way out of this one, son. If only we could open our eyes and see what our planet, used to be. Conveniently, she had water to spare, water to share, yet water did not overflow, and everything that we used to know would just grow. Orangutans playing in the vines instead of fighting cranes for their crimes, fish flourishing in coral reefs, and they're forced to find relief in fish tanks. Don't even get me started, because I'll never end until we comprehend this is an emergency. Not only for you, them, her, and he, but for us children, for me. We need to see the sea is rising. We need to act too. I hear a girl in the distance crying, like Atlas, I'm so tired after holding the earth on my shoulders for you. While politicians are at the pole, children are drowning in the seawater. Their lifespans just made shorter. Another problem is, I may never have kids. Having a child equals 600 flights emission-wide, so it's 1,800 tons of CO2. If only you knew I care too much about your children, our planet. So I'll never get to have daughters nor sons. Instead, I'll try to have tons of patience for people to start sparing some water. But even patience runs out in drought. Salt water overflow, and that nothing on land can grow. Meanwhile, the ocean becomes a wet desert, only holding sand. I guess on land, we just don't yet understand. In one motion, we could change. Environment and climate change emergency. Maybe that will make us see what and how we again could be. Child, you know I wish I could just have you, but in this world, you look just as good as energy and atoms of stardust, too. On the other side of the world, in Greenland, Nanook realized that not having children couldn't be right. What about those awesome, inspiring kids from Fridays for Future? They were literally saving the planet. She also started to try to think more positive thoughts. Blaming the individual. Fighting herself wasn't right. It was much bigger than that. She found out that even if every person on the planet tried to change their ways to be more sustainable, they would still only cut CO2 emissions by 4 to 7%. Now, this didn't mean that she shouldn't do everything that she could to help. It just meant that it had to be the big corporations and policy that had to change. But how could they make them? For now, she would go out into nature with her friends and family and appreciate what it was that they were fighting for. There were so many other problems in the world too. So after writing several little poems in the wild, she brought them back and sent them to a hospital that was collecting sweet, hopeful poetry for their patients. They needed support too. Maybe remembering what it was that they were fighting for could make them heal together somehow, regenerate their powers, so that they were all ready for the big battle to come. The kettle boiled. The woman felt spoiled as her husband of 45 years prepared their lunch. With a hunch all of her fears would never come true. They were going on an adventure. They would venture into the wild. Despite the fact that they had once been more mobile, but they were going into the wild. With style, with a smile, knowing every mile there would be a bench to rest their legs on. And together, they would always be strong. Nature is food for the soul. Both for the young and for the old. In nature, you're never told what to do or what to believe. All you have to do is perceive all the awe around you. All of the beauty rushing through the wind. You'll never feel pinned to one place. If you want, you can always explore more space. And even if it's cold, in great company, you'll feel warm and bold. Have you ever been up early enough to feel the sun rise? Not see it, but feel it with your mind and body, not just your eyes. The world starting anew upon yesterday, no matter what that brought. There's room enough for any emotion, feeling, or thought. No one will erupt or abruptly interrupt you. If awake, they'll be mesmerized, but the sun's rise too. But the world is still asleep. Ready to explore today, but later. For now, the main priority is feeling what that feeling feels like to keep unknowing, oblivious, naive. No clue what this day will bring. The only worry is pondering what the rising birds will sing. Have you heard the birds rise? Insert any metaphor about the sounds of the heavens that applies, because their angelic sounds will blow your mind around. These decibels will soon wipe away any frown on anyone in the sunbathed town. Have you smelled the crisp and smoky morning air? Felt the breeze in your blouse through your hair when the cold meets the warming rising rays of the sun? Although it's early now, being out is indescribably fun. The squirrel bouncing between the highest of the high trees, because she too is enjoying the breeze. And what better place to be than among those wet rustling leaves? Most importantly though, have you seen the famous colors of the wind? It's an impossibility to forget that you grinned at the early sun rays on the air after a long silent night. Because when your gaze falls upon them, you know instinctively that everything will be all right. Man might be tearing down the trees, but others found out how to make energy out of the breeze, instead of stealing Earth's nutrition-filled fuels with ignorant ease. Some imprison animals in cages for consumption, yet others let them roam free and join them in the careless assumption that one day we will all be equal and free. Equal to any living creature that will ever exist or be. So have you really felt the sun rise? Felt the air in your skin, the breeze in your nose, the light in your eyes? Waking up to such beauty that there's evil in the world comes as a surprise. Maybe next time we rise, we could start the world anew. With more kindness to each other and nature. The number of those hurting being fewer than few. Now, at the beginning of the show, I asked you to write a few words about your connection with nature and a quality you have that feels like a superpower. Do you want to say what you wrote down now?
Perfect de-stressing escape. Superpower, adaptability.
Adaptability. That's a pretty good superpower. And how does it make you feel when you're riding your bike in nature?
It's just another escape, isn't it? It's another way to. Is it escape or is it get back to realness?
I think that's it. Yeah. Exactly. There was someone in here the other day who said, like, what she said I really liked. She said in nature she felt present, and she didn't feel as present anywhere else. And I really liked that. Then the next week I went out with one of my friends to the Pentlands, and we had just been, at the Fringe for 2 weeks, and it's crazy, right, with the bins and the sound and everything. And then there were 2 birds that sat down on a little fence and started chirping, and then we stopped talking. We just looked at them and listened to them, and there was no other sound but that 2, and like it just felt like we were going mad or something like that, because it was all of a sudden you were like completely present, which you maybe hadn't been for the because there's so many things going on, and I think we need to do more of that, just being in nature and chilling. Yeah. Cool. You should bring that home, put it up somewhere, and then when you need to, remember what your superpower is, then you can just look there and be like, exactly, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, I'll go on with the show. As time went by, still the government took no action. 13-year-old Muka Mutara from Brazil knew she had to do more. Her superpowers were aching. They had to be used. She had to talk to politicians, make them see why they should care. This wasn't just a climate issue. This was a social issue, a feminist issue, a race issue. This was a human rights issue. So she assembled a group of like-minded people to be heroes outside of the local council to protest. But it wasn't enough. So onto the government they went. Only this time there was more of them. And they sang and they danced, and Envirowoman performed her poetic sounds inspired by the children of the future, which she herself was part of. I worry, said Greta, 16 years old. I worry not about normal things, like I'm told. I worry not about what most others worry about. Getting that new outfit for going out, whether my mom would be proud of the grades I achieve at school, whether others think I'm cool. Whether my shoes are high enough, whether my face is covered in spots or my pants are covered in condiment dots. Whether my delivery will make it on time. I worry about what legacy we, humankind, are leaving behind on a planet dying in front of us. We tell children like Greta to calm down. Hide away that sad frown. You're not bound by any obligation. God, technology, I don't know, aliens will save us. This is nothing more than one of planet Earth's demonstrations. Close your eyes. What do you see? Darkness. Darkness is what will be, a place none of us could ever be free. I'd say that's a pretty big cause to worry. As a messenger, I will tell you what the children around the world are saying if you keep your eyes closed a little bit longer for me. I worry, said Muka Mutara, 13 years old. In Brazil, in the lungs of our world, wildfires still mold. While our home is burning away, you'd rather discuss random fuss with a glass of piss in your hands making holiday plans. While the older generations sit comfortably in their chairs eating sweets and politicians invest in fossil fuels or a retreat, we, the children, are taking to the streets demanding action now. There is no, what if we somehow? There's only immediate change now or face a apocalyptic climate breakdown. The 6th era of mass extinction. Wait. Let me rephrase that. Mass extermination because extinction gives an insinuation that its causes are natural and not something caused by our nations, yet it is. We, the nations, are exterminating ourselves in our consumerism, economic growth, and in our so-called wealth. There's only one sort of growth we need. A growth in generosity and unselfishness to get rid of this greed. I worry, said Nanook, 10 years old. I worry about the sea rising over the horizon of Greenland where my family's ancestors stood bold. The sea is coming for my ancestors' grandchildren, their history and home. There's only one way to stop devastation and chaos from roaming. Fix this, stitch this. This is the most important piece of business. The IPCC report estimated 11 years, but it brings me to tears to tell you an 8.5 or CO2 allowance is up. So maybe it is you, not us, that need to grow up and stop thinking about money for a bit. People and animals are dying in front of our eyes, but you would rather make just that little bit more profit. I worry, said Nia. 8 years old. I worry 2 degrees of warming means the end of my tribe, a story never to be retold. If 2 degrees is good enough for you, consequences are sure to follow through. All around the world, climate change will show its clue. Get ready to face wars over resources on government's queue. Natural disaster, mass extermination and immigration, starvation, extreme weather and temperature fluctuation. Lack of drinking water due to drought and too heavy rainfall to filter out algae fast enough for there to be enough for all of us. Let's go CO2 neutral by 2025, or not even our species may be able to survive. I know it's much easier to dismiss this. Thousands dying in the darkness, ignorance is bliss. But I'm asking you to open your eyes now. See the light, channel that horrifying fright, stop your car, walk with those kids, screaming at the top of your lungs, I will not let this go on anymore. I will walk 1,000 miles, even if it makes my feet sore, even if I have to swim across the sea to the other side of that shore, even if it shakes and breaks me to my core. I will not let these kids hold up the world alone on their shoulders like Atlas did so many years before. I worry, said Freja, 27 years old. And in any other case, I would never have told anyone to worry. But by now, I hope you're just as frightened as me. And that opening your eyes here with me today has made you able to see. There are so many people around the world that were suffering increasingly from the climate crisis. It was overwhelming. But if it was overwhelming to her, who had found her voice, her role to play, her powers, would it not be overwhelming to others too? Others who had not yet engaged with the crisis and found their way to help. Articles about the illegalization of activist gathering, heroes assembling filled the news, their voices taken away. The risks were intensifying. The battle was increasing. The governments were fighting back, but on the side of the greedy corporations. And why? Why couldn't they see that they should all be on the same side? That they were all part of nature and all shared the same home, planet Earth, which they were slowly but surely destroying. And for what? Envirowoman started to doubt her influence, the power of her voice. She found herself by the sea pondering about how they all could do better. Where she grew up, the sea was all over, a fluidity, how she loved the sea. And one day when she felt the most lonely, she walked up and down the beach. And suddenly she found a message from someone. It was exactly what she needed. She wasn't alone. That person who sent the message felt just like her. Maybe what everyone needed was just a little bit of hope. Where I grew up, I was never far from the sea. No matter where I went in the horizon, the sea was all I could see, you see. It felt much too easy to take it for granted. I first realized this when in landlocked lands I landed. Without the sea, I felt stranded. So I had to pack up and take my chances. Nothing made me feel calmer than looking over that wavy horizon, seeing the sun setting or rising, the perfectly amber lighting reflecting in the sea. When I found out the sea, was in danger, I began to worry about capitalism increasing consumption in such a hurry. Plastic, oil, noise, and light pollution. No one taking action provoked in me confusion. Heating of the planet and thus the oceans, bringing out all sorts of emotions and resulting in the death of thousands of species. Politicians turning a blind eye for profit instead of signing climate change treaties, because that is all the more easy. Still, our mistakes flow even into the depth of the sea. And while fires are burning the forest down, yet another fire started in me. I knew I had to be a warrior, a fighter, a truth provider. Someone bringing people and nature together, not dividing us wider. The loudest voice in the crowd, fighting for their beliefs. An activist for Mother Nature and all of her beautiful beings and creations. My love flows stronger than the dirty money that claims to rule these nations. And with love, I will fight for Mother Sea, so that she and we can continue to be. There was still hope. How could something so beautiful as the oceans, the forests, our world go extinct? How could we let it? Although the IPCC had announced Code Red for humanity and there was wildfires, flooding, global warming, and extinction, maybe there was something that all of the Envirowomen around the world could do to together help save their home. They could spread the word, spread the sounds of nature, make them grow in people's hearts and minds like little superhero sound seedlings. But where? Of course, literally anywhere. This battle wasn't bound by borders. But the first point of attack was going to be COP27, the next and maybe the most important climate change conference in the history of humankind. That was where they would assemble, combine their powers to together put out their world, their home on fire, and help each other, the public, the politicians, even the people from the greedy corporations grow. Grow kinder. Forget about money and economic growth. Grow not to be apart from nature, but once again be a part of nature. There it is, the last page of the Envirowoman saga, for now. A long time ago, when I was a kid, I wanted superpowers, but none of those on TV seemed to fit. Yet as I grew up, a light bulb lit. And I learned that strength is not only physical, it can also take form of intelligence, talent, kindness, or wit. I learned that my superhero powers come with my passion for equality. For all living creatures that will ever live, breathe, exist, or be, that was my prophecy, and therefore this is my plea. I, Envirowoman, am here to make sure everyone is treated equally. No matter species, social class, gender, race, or sexuality, together equally, there's more power in him, her, them, you, and me than there is in those who oppress demographically. Not even close to sarcastically. Let me mention oppressors often possess authority. They engage in oppression mainly for profit and a feeling of superiority, methodically. Mistaken villains like Darth Vader, Magneto, and the Joker once were also treated horribly. So let's stop the mistake of using horrifying policies. I would not beat up the assumed villains so easily before understanding the system that made them who they originally wanted to be. Still part of this villainous equation is extinction, racism, abuse, and deforestation by big fossil fuel trucks carrying a symbol of Western dictation. One oh so greedy creation. When my enviro ears hear the commotion in the ocean, it reminds me of my devotion and awakes the emotion that is my superpower potion. Apparently, digging deep into the darkest places of the planet is fine, and slaying the awakened ancient guardians seen as monsters rather than as divine, because new material possessions bring capitalist peace of mind. But is the decline of species, indigenous people, and black female LGBTQIA+ life something we can get behind? Now, we all have our own processing time. Yet once you're out of that cocoon, a full-blown flying hero, you'll empower sun, earth, space, and moon, and with laser eyes and beaming lips, your words of choice could grasp attention like a lunar eclipse. And this is how they could run. I, superhero name, will fight this battle for everyone. I will never just move on. I will stay strong. I will use the power instilled in me by the powers that be. I will fight for anyone who do not have the same resourcefulness currently, whatever creature that might be. If you throw words of hate and negativity and say it's all down to values and subjectivity, I throw super words of fact and honesty. In the sky, I spell out with my environmental signal beam equality. It comes with empathy. And it means that we should all have the same rights and be free. Because basic human rights for everyone is key. See, I, Envirowoman, draw this power from within. So let the games of change open and begin.